Welcome to Talk. I'm your host, Elizabeth Vanderwalt, a holistic doula and a women's health coach, and the founder of Fruitful Womb Doula Services. This space is for every woman who is walking the path towards deeper healing. Whether you're tending to your fertility or you're carrying life, maybe you're grieving loss or you're stepping into motherhood. Or maybe you're even easing into the wisdom of menopause. Here we honor the full spectrum of womanhood through story, nourishment, and sacred conversation. Feel free to follow us on social media at fruitfulwombdoula and stay connected with the community of women we are trying to build. Let's settle in, take a deep breath, and begin. Welcome. I know you guys are like, we used to have so many guest speakers, and now we're in a sort of just you and I conversation. And sometimes that's for the better because when I get a chance to speak, I can share with you some of my wisdom and share with you more about me and my stories. So today, I thought I'd go a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the commonly asked questions around women's health, especially if you're over 30. So one of the commonly ones that I am asked is why is women's health in our 30s such an important time to pay attention? And I'll just start by saying that I just turned 25 this year, and I have been blessed to have such wisdom to be aware to my body and different ways to be healthy. And a lot of people, they look at me and because of my outward appearance, they think, oh, you are unhealthy. And there's so many reasons behind that. But when, in all honesty, I just have my own personal struggles going on. Now, a lot of women who are in their 20s and young age, because I started my health journey and looking into women's health more and more when I turned like 15, 16, when I was struggling with some of my period struggles. And a lot of women normally just right away go to a doctor, get birth control. And I'm not saying everyone, just a majority of women. And from there, you're just, you're fine. So you party and you live it up and you enjoy it. And I'm so happy for the people that get to live a life like that. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if I didn't know the things I knew so early on. But in all honesty, the reason why women's health takes such a peak when we turn 30 and why it's such an important time for us to pay attention is just because our bodies are starting to whisper more what we need. So, sometimes that can be a huge struggle if you already are on birth control. You don't see those irregular cycles, but you're having other issues like fatigue or digestive changes and stress. Stress is a huge pivotal problem in our days because we're trying to balance careers. There's relationship issues, then there's family, and then there's the age-old question of the identity. How do you see yourself? How do you want to represent to the world? And how are you on the inside? So, listening as much as we can to what our bodies need, nourishing them not only through food, but with rest, and just being aware so that we can prevent burnout and set ourselves up for better fertility. So, that is whether you are trying to conceive or not, because our fertility is just being a woman until menopause. And if you are currently pregnant, it's for, or trying to get pregnant, is you want smoother pregnancies. And you are all helping each step into a gentler transition into menopause. So that is why women's health is such an important topic, especially if you just turned 30 and you're taking a big deep dive. And if you're younger, this isn't anti do it when you're young. If you can start tomorrow, start tomorrow. And if you need to start later, that's okay too. Your journey will come to you when your journey comes to you. So, another thing that I get asked a lot is about the people that you do have on your support team right now. And normally that consists of an OBGYN or a family doctor. And sometimes it will consist of an naturopath. But there is so much out there, and a lot of people, especially women, we feel dismissed when having an OBGYN or a family doctor when you bring up symptoms. And so I'd like to just give you a little advice and statement on that. So we've had a great guest speaker on here already who was an actual physician, family doctor, and she did a huge dive on how you need to take advocacy for yourself. So please make sure you watch that episode. It was incredible to have her with, and I do hope we can work together again in the future. But she said it so easily and clearly there. And a lot of it comes that we need to be able to stand up for ourselves. And we are, and I fully recognize each role that a person has in the world of health. And especially OBGYNs and doctors, they hold a lot of knowledge to them, and I give it to them. I give it to them there. And sometimes when you get set in a pattern of this is just the only answer, then we get in our own loops. And so that's for their situation. But when it comes to you, you need to be putting the full power onto yourself. So we look to doctors and other people for guidance. They give us support to give us the tools we need so we can get our health. So if you do need a surgery, then yeah, a doctor's who you need. If you want someone for nutrition, you want to get a nutritionist. If you want someone who is going to be your support person, then you need a doula. So those are where everything has a place in the team, and everybody's got their little spot where they can go. So the biggest advice that I can give to you is that you know your body best. So if you're telling me that something feels off, I want you to trust that instinct. I want you to advocate for yourself by asking the questions that you need. So if you go to a doctor, make sure you come in with a list of questions to ask them. And don't be afraid to seek other practitioners that work in that field. So, like I said, if I had nutrition issues, which I do, I go to see a nutritionist or a naturopath. They are also in there. If you are looking for more help for herbals and different herbal remedies, I would go to an herbalist. And a lot of natural practitioners have to say, go to a doctor, ask first. But if I went to, and this is again, no hate to them, but if I went to an OBGYN and I told them I was going to take Yarrow for my heavy bleeding instead of a birth control pill, they're like, what in the quacks? And I did have an OBGYN that questioned me when I spoke that I was going to a naturopath at the same time. She's like, oh, well, if you're going to listen to her, why are you bothering to see me? And she got very offended by that. And that's why I told her, you have a very important role on my team, and I appreciate the advice that you give me for what I'm needing. But there are other people with other roles that I go to seek other information. And she wasn't too happy with that with me, but I have to stand my place because I like to always tell people that everybody, if you hired me as your doula or your women's health coach, you have the ability to fire me. And that goes with doctors, and that goes with herbalists and naturopaths. That goes with everyone that you are choosing to work with. Even though in Canada, we're very blessed to have it paid for, and we're given the gift of medicine so freely, there are still options that you have to say no. And sometimes that means signing an AMA against medical advice. Sometimes that means you do have to walk out and make a big scene, and it's like, well, in their eyes, they're not thinking you're the easiest patient. But easy doesn't always get you what you need. Sometimes it has to be really hard. And trust me, I am always learning this myself every day, even with all the advice that I give to people. So that's another big question that I get asked. And hopefully that is answering some of that for you there. So another one, my nose is allergic. So another one that I love to talk about is our connections to all of our systems. So if you work with a lot of heart-centered businesses, we always talk about wanting to help mind, body, soul, or mind, body, heart, or whatever one that they choose to say. But I personally like to always remind people that as a whole, we are a very interesting system. We are made up of different veins, bones, and each thing is connected. And emotionally, we are very connected to, as women, our emotions are very connected to our physical health. So, to give a little personal details, I'd like to share with you a little bit of a story of something that I've been going through lately. So, if you watch some of my videos or seen some of my posts in the community on YouTube or on Facebook, I talked about how in February of 2025, I lost my grandmother, unfortunately. She was 95, but she was a woman that I had lived with my entire life. And this was the first person who in my house I had lived with and I had witnessed from my beginning to her end. And I am very blessed for all the moments that I was given, but I thought I could handle it better a little bit. And so emotionally, I feel like on the outside, like right now, I'm tearing up a bit. But emotionally, most days I do feel good, except for when I think about her. And then I feel a little like, meh, I feel a little sad. And from there, that goes into my physical health. So although on the daily I can be like going to my women's circles, I could be going helping women, and I can feel really great. I feel really happy and just so supportive. But my body is also registering that knowledge that she is gone. And my body is, even though not all the time, recognizing that I am missing her and that I am sad, those emotional qualms are still happening in the background. And with the background of those things, that is no, I've been noticing signs where my health physically is taking a toll from the emotional struggle. So in February, right before she passed away, actually, I had a really serious period. Like it was heavy duty, it was just not great anyway. And then she passed away, it went away. And I have not got my period back until July. And so my body, although I may not actively be grieving every single day, it is grieving and it is going through that recognition. And every day you have moments, especially if it's people you've lived with, that you see them in places around you. And so I'm going way off topic here, but I just wanted to share my personal story to help you understand that our emotional health is so connected. So our womb holds more than biology. It carries more than just DNA and all that stuff. It also carries emotions, stories, and, as I was saying, unprocessed grief. So if you follow along and you're in the birth world, and I think I've talked about it even here, is that as a woman, I was in my grandmother's womb. And that's such a special, sacred thing to know that when my mother was conceived, her undeveloped eggs were inside my mother. And therefore, when my grandmother was carrying my mother, there was a part of me there. And as women, we are so generationally connected. And so when we're going through stress or we're going through trauma and we're not giving ourselves the self-care that we need, this shows up and you'll see it, like I said, in those cycle irregularities, the periods, like our cycles are so connected to us as a whole. So if you're struggling with pain or fatigue, this is playing a physical toll because of our emotions. And you'll see a lot of people who work with emotions and work with that when people are processing from that ability, they make a huge change for their bodies physically. So that's a really long story short on why emotionally we're so connected to our physical health and therefore. And I kind of want to leave it with those three big questions, but I think I'll just give you a small tip to kind of work with things that I want you, and I want to make this an action step. So if you're listening to this right now, whether you're in your car or you're listening on YouTube, or if you're just sitting down and actually getting to watch or see this, I really want you to make a mental note, or if you are able to, grab a pen or the notes app on your phone. Um, and I want you to write down the words, I'm honoring my cycle. So I want you to use that as noticing, what is your energy like on the day to day? What are your moods like? What do you crave? Are you craving more sweet things, more salty? I just want you to notice each little thing that you are doing for yourself. When did you last sleep? How long did you sleep? And although it's very hard, so you don't, I personally have such a struggle with trying to keep track by writing this all down and making it so, so intense. But I just really, really want you to begin to notice the things so that, you know, yes, I did get to sit for 2 hours and enjoy some TV, or I did get to do that knitting project I wanted, or just anything that gets you to notice about yourself and what you're doing for you. Because the more that you notice these things, you're going to find there are things that you just are like, well, I noticed that y- did this one thing and it drained me. Physically, I felt drained. Emotionally, I felt drained. And so from there, you can make more conscious decisions to better support your health. So I really hope that this is your awareness, your doorway to healing. And I hope you can, from this, take great actionable steps. I hope you'll join me next Monday for another video where we will be having a guest speaker with us. So thank you very much and have a wonderful day. See you next Monday.